Welcome everyone to this week's edition of English 101X. And today we're going to be talking about the parameters of writing an essay. And it's kind of like a review. I want to go back and take a look at two model essays for the narrative that I've posted on Canvas. I'm not sure if you, the student, are looking and reading these narrative essays as examples of the direction you might want to take, or if you're confused about how to start it, what to write about. These are two really good examples. And also, it's important that you continually review the prompt. Otherwise, you can get off on a tangent and not stay focused on what we're asking you to write about. And this essay is just like the other two, 1,500 words. You need 4 resources to support whatever direction that you take. But we'll get to that when we get to the parameters, when we get to the actual essays. So I'm going to, and Noea is going to chime in whenever she wants, or ask her a question. And so to talk about the basics, the very first thing you need is a title. I've noticed that some students are writing, but they're not creating a title. And so the title is the very first contact that your reader has with your writing. You want to create something enticing. You want to create an enticing title for the reader to read. The very next thing is your very first sentence, right? Your very first sentence. And your first sentence is like an attention grabber. An attention grabber. Do you know the term that they use for this, Noea?
I've heard attention grabber, I've heard hook.
Okay, yeah. The very first sentence is your attention grabber, your hook. How do you pull in your reader so that they continue to read your story or whatever it is that you're writing about? And examples are quotes, comedy, personal experience, some type of a dramatic grab, right? Can you think of anything else, Noea?
I think that's pretty good and encapsulating so far. I mean, I've also seen like posing a problem or like an interesting fact even about the topic. I don't know.
Well, actually, you hit on it. A rhetorical question. Right? Yeah. Okay, good. So here we go. You've got a great title. You've got a great hook. You've used something to grab and to hold the interest of your reader. Then your next few sentences are usually, they're just general information on the topic. You could spell general right, Professor. Okay. Then your next sentences maybe are more specific. It's kind of like we're building, we're okay. As you're writing, your reader is saying, okay, good, I'm in. You may use an example of what you're writing about, or example of content. And by now you're like 4 or 5 sentences into your introductory paragraph. Your very first paragraph is called the introductory paragraph. Okay. I've never actually done this before. Put it in steps like this. But then you get to your thesis. Or as I like to call it, the roadmap to the reader. And this is where you tell us where you're going. And this is where you talk about maybe the 3 things, or 3 to 4 topics that you will share in your writing. And although it does sound very structured, it kind of is, especially when you're starting out writing. And if you ever get stuck, you can always go back to the basics. I have to first use a hook to, well, great title, use a hook to bring in my reader, give them general information about the topic, then a little bit more specific information, maybe some examples. Then you get to the thesis statement, basically telling your reader where you're going and what you're going to talk about, what your claims are, what you're going to prove. And that's just your introductory paragraph. Your very first body paragraph will be about the first topic mentioned in your thesis. Okay, so what are we saying here? We're saying that if you're, for example, let's say if the narrative essay, that you say that the values that you value most that you've learned from your family or from your father or from whatever sources are integrity, promptness, and maybe physical, keeping up with your physical regimen, for example. And so the very first thing that you mentioned in your thesis statement is the topic of your very first body paragraph. Okay, then once you start to talk about the topic, then you have to support it with well-researched material. And as I've mentioned before, that if you say something in writing, you have to support it with some type of research and some type of study, some type of article, some type of survey. Why? Because we're not experts in the field. We cannot just randomly say that the abuse of the cell phone affects our vision or increases our anxiety or increases depression in young people without supporting it with a well-recognized article or survey or something of that sort. That's why it's important for us to support our contentions with other sources, other expert sources. So you support your topic with well-researched material. Then you write a concluding sentence that leads to your second body paragraph. Second Bobby. Oops. And this is the pattern that you use throughout your body paragraphs. You introduce your topic in the topic sentence. Then you support your topic with well-researched material. And then you conclude your body paragraph with a concluding sentence that leads to your next topic. Am I missing anything, Noea?
Looks pretty good so far. In terms of body paragraphs, I think having that topic sentence is a really good lead-in because that gives like the general overview of what that body paragraph is going to be about. And I think it's really important too to contain each body paragraph to just one or two main ideas, like your professor says, to talk about just one topic from your thesis statement and expanding on it, because I'll see some students have lots of ideas, and a paragraph, it's indented to visually show the reader that you are moving from one set of ideas to another set of ideas. And it is its own unit of meaning, I usually say. And your paragraphs, particularly your body paragraphs, should have a balance between your outside source, like the authority that you're bringing in to prove your point, and your own commentary, your own like analysis or explanation of the authority. Because I'll see a lot of students too who will do a good job at finding really well-researched experts or studies that have been done and experiments that prove their point, but they'll just directly quote, and it's like I'm reading the study again. We want to hear from you too, so you want to balance again that outside source, whether it's a quote or a paraphrased material, with your own sort of commentary that expands on it. I think it's good to have that balance in your body paragraphs too.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that. Yes, that's another important parameter that students, once they realize, I think it's almost like nirvana. Each body paragraph should be about one topic and not introduce any other topics, and just stick with that one topic. If you're going to be talking about how the overuse of screens affects teens' depression and anxiety, then bomba, that's where you stay, right there. You don't bring in, well, it also affects sleeplessness, and it also affects antisocial behavior. None of those things. You just stick with the topic. Okay. So, of course, your second and third body paragraph should follow the same parameters as the first body paragraph. And it looks like we ran out of space here. Let's see if this helps, gives me some space. it's not. So let me just eliminate these spaces.
Is this on like the Zoom whiteboard?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I don't think I've really used it too much yet. Interesting.
Yeah, well, I was gonna use my whiteboard in here, but I know I was gonna run out of time. I mean, run out of space. Okay, and then finally, the conclusion should reiterate your thesis statement, but not in the same words. It should summarize your comments. Does not have to reword any of the studies. I mean, any of the quotes, I'm sorry, have to requote. I mean, not to say that you don't have to. And then here you can make a recommendation. Give your analysis. But one thing that you cannot do in the conclusion is introduce any new topic or content that was not already mentioned in your work. Okay.
Yeah, looks good. With the conclusion, sometimes it's also a good space or section of your writing to ask yourself and try to answer, why is this important to know? Why are your values important for other people to know about? Which people, what can they benefit from it, from this discussion that you gave? Usually if you're writing like a more rigid argumentative paper or like the research papers we've done, in the conclusion, you would provide more of your own subjective opinion on the matter. But I think the conclusion is a good area to try to answer that really pertinent question of, like, why is this important to know? Because it can add value to your essay at the end and act as like a good way to wrap up and tie up all of these ideas that you presented.
Exactly. Here's your like final moment to bring your essay home. If you want to, like, let's say if you're in the, I'll go back to the argumentative essay, you really believe that some type of legislation should be passed, almost like driving a vehicle where young people should have some type of introductory class or some type of information about the use of the cell phone and the do's and the don'ts. I know that maybe like that might be overreaching government control, but the studies have shown that the overuse of the cell phone has created incredible problems that the media conglomerates are overlooking. All right, so that's pretty much it. Now let's take a look at, we're almost out of time. Let's take a look at our module. And again, I've made it as clear as possible. Watch, read, write. And under read, this is the prompt. And it's real, it's right here. It's pretty much very bare bones. Here is the prompt. What are the 3 things that you value most in life? Why are these 3 things so important to you? Provide examples and support them with meaningful research. For example, if you say family is very important, research why family is important to us as individuals. Or if you say music is really important to you, again, research the power of music in people's lives. Don't forget to provide us, the readers, with plenty of personal examples. 4 to 5 documented references, 2 references from academic sources. Like I said, I think it's pretty bare bones. We went over the exercise of taking a look at 100 values, whittling it down to our top 10, our top 5, our top 3, and then the top 1, but we're writing about 3. Now, I would like to take a look at, we don't have a lot of time now, but I provided you with, last week, 2 student narrative essays, and they're both really, really good. We're just going to open up the very first one and see how it stands up to the parameters for writing. Self-information of values, self-formation of values. Well, it kind of like right away, it's almost posing a type of almost a rhetorical question. Self-formation of values. What is, it's definitely enticing. What is she or he talking about? And then I love the very first thing this student uses as their hook is a great quote. The most important factor for the development of the individual is the structure and the values of the society into which he was born. So right away, they use one of the hot terms that are in the prompt, right? So we got a good hook going here, and then some very basic information. Personal values are the significant aspects of life that influences us to be the person who we are. Very general statement, right? From behaviors, morals, and characteristics, they all contribute to our lifestyle and decision-making. Getting a little bit more, giving us a little bit more information, building, right? This writer is building. Now she gets personal. I have many significant values in my life, but my top 3 are community, self-discipline, and health and fitness. These values are the most significant to me as they are incorporated in my everyday life, shaping me into who I am today. Excellent. It's a short introductory paragraph, but she gets to the point and she tells us where we're going, right? And so the very first thing that she mentions, I say she, I don't know if it's a she, the student mentions is what? Community. Okay, so what does this student write about? Well, she tells us that she's going with community in her thesis statement. Then in her topic sentence, she mentions it again. Family, friends, and members residing amongst San Diego are members of my community. So we know that she's kind of like, okay, she mentioned community, now she's going to talk about community. And then she writes about it. my community is significant to me as it has molded me into who I am today. And there are some little mini mistakes through some of these things. And then she talks about personally, she moved from San Francisco to San Diego, and it allowed her to live in two different cultures and to make a comparison. Then she talks about her family, how they shaped her to become the person who she is today, what they've taught her, the morals, values, and beliefs. They taught her manners, cultural body language, such as greeting and dismissing your loved ones with a kiss on the cheek, very cultural in lots of cultures, right? Celebrating Day of the Dead, she's obviously a Latina. Beliefs such as practicing religion by attending mass. If it weren't for my family, I don't know what would have been become of me as they created me piece by piece. So she's getting very personal, very narrative in sharing what values mean to her and sharing some of the values and how they were transferred to her from her family. And she goes on to talk about San Diegans and my beloved friendships and members of my community. She talks a little bit about the Marine life. We have a lot of armed forces living and operating out of San Diego. And she goes on to share some really cool information about that. San Diego's largest nation is home to the nation's largest concentration of military personnel. And the second one was discipline. We all have dreams, but in order to make dreams come into reality, it takes an awful lot of determination, dedication, and self-discipline and effort. So she comes in again with a quote, a great quote, to pull us into talking about self-discipline, self-dedication, which are tough subjects for a lot of us, to adhere to. We have 1 minute. Oh my God. Starts off with values of success. Poses a rhetorical question. What is a person but just a collection of past experiences, thoughts, and desires? What guides someone throughout life? What tells them what to believe and stand for? What values do they feel are important? Again, pulling us in, with some really cool questions. Values, and then he goes on to answer. Values act as a person's principles or standards of behaviors. It's someone's judgment of what's important in life, and then gets into a little bit more general information, and then we'll definitely get a little bit more specific. An example of one who created their own value system would be one of the most notable figures in United States history, Benjamin Franklin. And I love this connection with Benjamin Franklin, because what he talks about is the 13 values that Benjamin Franklin wrote about, and how he tried to follow his values that he created. And I think it's something for us to maybe do some research on. He says, of the 13 values, the ones that resonate with me the most are justice, order, and humility. And I highly recommend that you read this student's essay, because it says an awful lot. And when it talks about humility, it's a very deep writing. And when he talks about discipline, and he talks about social issues also in this particular essay. And he talks about, the value of order states, let all your things have their places, let each part of your business have its time. And then he kind of like dissects and analyzes this, and here we go. Self-discipline is the ability to overcome your weaknesses and to pursue what you think is right, despite feeling you may have to abandon it. And I love the fact that both of these students talk about self-discipline, because that's what we need in order for us to overcome any obstacles that get in our way of our goals. So anyway, I hope that you got something out of this, and that maybe for some students that were maybe confused or needed an example of where to go or how to write, or maybe needed re-examination or a review on the parameters of the essay. Any final thoughts, Noea?
Not too much from me. It was nice to go over some of the fundamentals again. I still think it's very important to learn the structure first of good writing, depending on the purpose of that writing, and then you can become more creative and more crystallized in like your own style and identity after that. And Joy, did you want to say something? You were unmuted.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just another comment to please send me your papers. If you don't have time to come in to the English Center and do like a synchronous session with the tutor, feel free to do a paper submission. You can request me. Joy did that already. She's been great with that. Alicia as well have been great students, turning stuff in all the time and getting multiple drafts in. So don't forget that you can use our paper submission services as well. It'll take about 24 to 48 business hours though. So make sure to account for that too. But I know your final draft isn't due until I believe like 22nd or so. Yeah. So you have a lot of time to still turn that in and let a tutor look at that work for you, get you some feedback.
Yes, and contact me so we can have a one-on-one final review. And also just a little reminder that we've got 2 weeks left next week and then the following week. So we really have 3 classes left, 2 next week. And then the following week, we have our final class on Monday. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to edit it down, and I'm going to send it out as fast as possible. So have a great week. And if you have any questions, you can contact me or Noea.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
All right, bye.